Hey guys, it's Shibaan Storytime, and today I'm going to be talking about perfectionism and burnout. So I think burnout's a thing we've all experienced at some point. I'm sure that all of us are good at something, maybe not to the point where it becomes a perfectionist thing. Maybe it's just me, but what do I know? I don't know. I can't really speak for other people, but in my own experience, I was good at writing to the point where my perfectionism around it was really unhealthy and unnecessarily toxic, and it led to some pretty big writer's block for me that's I'm still experiencing today. So on to the story time. So my in my old primary school, I was known as the quote unquote writer kid, and I had a pretty inflated ego about it from when I was in P4 to about when I was in P6. So keep in mind I used the British education kind of measurement. I'm not sure if it's the exact British curriculum thing because I go to Hong Kong, so it might be like a somewhat Hong Kongized system. But what do I know? Again, I don't know anything. I'm stupid. So take my words with a grain of salt. So it all started when I went to school early. I can't remember how old I was exactly when I started going to kindergarten, but I remember I graduated a year early from kindergarten because I went to an international primary school. And this is because like in Hong Kong you need to graduate kindergarten a year early to go to primary international school, like international school specifically for some weird reason. I don't know why. And basically I was already going to school like a year younger than I should have been because I started kindergarten a year early. So I was like 2 years younger than most of the kids in my class in a lot of settings, and I was even 3 years younger by some kids by the time I got to secondary school. And basically this international school is the reason why my accent is so confusing. I had literally friends from like everywhere. I'll talk about that in another video, but anyways, in my old primary school, everything was fairly easy. The school itself was out in the countryside, and like the curriculum was mostly geared towards like play and developing your own personal skills and physical activities, more than the usual rote learning that local students face, because local students, I'm not gonna lie, when local students are actually like the exact stereotype of what you expect Chinese kids to be. Like they usually do like test papers every day for homework, like 5 test papers a day from the time they start school, and that's not fun. And luckily my parents sent me to an international school, so I love my parents. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad. I had a childhood because I went to an international school. So anyways, writing. I started writing when I wrote this comic in P4, which is basically 4th grade for you Americans, I believe. And it was about this T-Rex named Tony and his dad who went on these silly adventures where basically both of them were on holiday, and every time they went somewhere there would be a problem in the area, and the local herbivores would go to them for help, and they'd be like the reluctant heroes. So basically everyone in my class loved it, and it was a huge ego boost for me. So it got to the point where I again was known as the writer, air quotes, and it formed such a huge part of my identity that I couldn't take any criticism at that point, and I really genuinely believed I was like a kid genius, that I would be the next J.K. Rowling, that I'd be like rolling in dough from like all my writing and stuff. So I had a pretty inflated ego, like someone in the Warrior Cat community who I will not talk about anymore. I will not mention who must not be named, but anyways, I was a lot like them back in primary school. So I was like the best at spelling tests in my class. I would be the kid who would complain that spelling tests were too easy and the entire class would hate me. And I would read like a lot of books that are beyond my age level. I actually kind of credit Warriors for my really wide vocabulary because actually Warriors is pretty rich in terms of interesting words. Like I remember in not in Warriors but in Survivors, actually they had this one word that like my teacher didn't know, and she was British. I think it was tussocks. Yeah, tussocks. And basically tussocks are like these wide patches of grass, and like my teacher didn't know what it meant. And she literally made me read that passage out to the entire class, and that was again a huge ego trip for me because I knew what it meant and nobody else knew what it meant. So that kind of continued up until I was in P6. So in P6, there was this new girl from Venezuela who I'm going to call Ariel in this video because it wouldn't be nice to mention her real name. And basically, Ariel was better at writing than me, and she was better at art than me. And art was a thing I was not good at, but I loved as well, but I was really insecure about it. So every time people would mention my art over my writing, I would just like literally smack them. And basically, I'll admit, I wasn't the best person when I came to this. I got so angry, I started, spreading all these rumors about, Ariel to maintain my perfect image of being a good writer, the quote-unquote best writer of my generation, if not my entire school. So, basically, Ariel and I actually made up, like in secondary school. We go to the same secondary school now, and we're actually pretty good friends now. But back then, I was a demon. So I was like, girl, you cannot be better than me. I'm the best. You cannot best the best writer in the entire world. So that was basically a huge learning point for me because I learned that I was not the best writer, quote unquote, in the entire world. And learning that kind of put me into a little depression where I didn't write for like a few years. But when I started writing again, which was in secondary free, like the first time I wrote something again, I wrote for like a writing competition, a local writing competition in my area, and I actually ended up winning it, which again was a huge ego trip. So I went from rock bottom to top of the world to rock bottom again, which I will talk about in a few minutes. But anyways, I was on top of the world after that writing competition that I won, and I felt that I was on top of the world again. I was like the best writer again. It was like P6 had never happened. And then I won again. I won again the next year, and that was also a huge ego trip for me. But it all came crashing down when I started the HKDSC curriculum in secondary 5. So in secondary 5, that was when I started the HKDSC curriculum. And for those people who don't know what it is, like in my school, we're split into the senior forms are split into GCE and the HKDSC. So like the rich smart kids get to go to the GCE, and all the poor dumb kids get to go to the HKDSC, which is the local curriculum. And the GCE is basically the bridge curriculum, so you can choose which one to take. But you need to have money and you need to have brains to take it, and I have neither. Actually, I think my grades would have gotten me into the GC curriculum if my parents had let me go. But actually, I'm really poor, so like, I can't afford it. I couldn't afford it, so I didn't get to go. And the DSC is soul crushing. Like, English is literally fill in the blanks. And literature, it's a new subject, so the marking scheme is just really, like, subjective and all over the place. So, I've been getting, fails, in literature for the past, year, and it's really made me feel like I'm at rock bottom again, but at the same time, I've realized I've formed such a perfectionist mentality around my own writing that I wonder if I was really all that good to begin with. Like, you can't really measure my ability for how many writing contests I've won, because that's a really subjective thing. Like, the people who are judging the competition, like, what kind of genres do they like? Was my style of writing to their tastes? Like, that's a very subjective thing, and the only true way you can measure how good a person is at writing is through their critique, basically. And I never actually really got critique through my entire life as a writer, through being a writer through my in my whole life, basically. It's like a do or die thing for me. If I'm not a writer, then who am I? And that is not a healthy mentality to have. So I've been working on kind of improving my writing, on reshaping my mentality towards writing, and this is helping me avoid burnout. Because if you believe you are perfect, if you have this perfectionist mentality of I have to be the best at it or I'm the worst at it mentality towards like anything in life, you're eventually gonna burn out. You won't be able to sustain it. You won't be able to sustain the pressure of being perfect, of sustaining everyone else's expectations. Because really, the only thing that matters in most cases is what you think about the thing you're good at. If you really love it, then you wouldn't give yourself this pressure in the first place because it's supposed to be, if you're good at something, like, you're supposed to be good at it, obviously, like, not really, you're supposed to enjoy it, you can be good at it, but it's okay to admit that you're not good at some aspects of it. You can still improve, and if there's someone better than you, then the best thing for you to do is to take advice from them, and then improve yourself. So in that case, it's still a win. You don't need to sustain a perfectionist image for the aesthetic of it, but you should instead learn to improve from what you feel keeps you from being perfect. So that's it for me. Thank you.